How healthy is your cash flow at the moment? Welcome to Construction Genius. This is Eric Anderton. My guest today is Patrick Hogan. He is the CEO of Handle.com. Handle.com helps contractors and suppliers improve cash flow and protect payment rights. Patrick and I are going to discuss the latest trends in cash flow management and also dive into secrets to successful cash flow and payment protection in the construction industry. In our interview, you're going to get tons of insight into the discipline and into the focus that you need in order to maximize cash flowing through your company. It's your responsibility ultimately as the owner, the CEO of your business, to drive that emphasis on cash flow through your company, even if you might find it at times a bit boring, the back end stuff. Nevertheless, it's a very, very vital aspect of your business. And Patrick and I are going to discuss how you can be more successful at managing that cash flow. So enjoy today's interview. Feel free to give us a rating or a review wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for listening to Construction Genius, and enjoy my chat with Patrick. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Patrick, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Eric. Thanks for having me.
It's very interesting. I know that there's obviously tons of issues that construction companies deal with on a daily basis in terms of bidding work, in terms of planning and building work. But one of the major issues that's bedeviling contractors at the moment is cash flow. And I know you have some specific strategies to help contractors improve their cash flow. But why do you think it is that construction companies do struggle with cash flow in general?
I think it's a skill set gap where oftentimes you take a profession like construction where it's like the actions are get out there, build it, get it done. And then you look at the back office where cash flow, billing, invoicing is done, tends to be just much more, tedious. And I think a lot of times you have construction leaders and owners that are amazing at building their construction business, growing it. And in fact, the growth of their business is what causes the cash flow issues because maybe they just get too many projects ahead. We think about it as in, this business is having a cash flow problem. That means that they may not be growing. But in fact, a lot of the businesses I worked with, the ones that have some of the biggest cash flow issues are that they're growing too fast. And so I just think that it's a little bit of something that doesn't come naturally and something that construction leaders just need to focus on and learn.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's almost proverbial that contractors don't go out of business because of no work. They go out of business because of too much work. As you mentioned, this idea of a skill set gap, and there's different schools of thought in terms of what CEOs and senior executives should focus on when there's when they see a skill set gap. What is your conviction around the balance between how much sophistication a construction executive needs in terms of understanding cash flow and how much should they be either outsourcing or delegating to someone within their organization with more competency in those areas?
That's an amazing question. And I think that is a key in that many of the people that I've worked with that have had cash flow issues and have needed help, you can just tell that they've got great people skills, great ability to go out and bid on new jobs, great ability to finish and do quality work that gets them repeat referrals. And so you start to think about it and you're like, look, there's only so much time in the day that you can spend, right? I mean, if you've got to manage your crew, you've got to do takeoffs, you've got to be bidding. And so I'm really of the opinion that what you want to be able to do as a construction leader is get somebody, and I personally believe in-house, but there's also a lot of really good outside agencies as well. But get a bookkeeper, accountant, accounting manager, whatever you want to call them, a dedicated resource that is helping the construction leader, whether that be internal or external, helping the construction leader with those items of, sending invoices immediately and on time, making sure that everything is in there and billed for. And what I've often worked with is what I call a checklist, where you grade your back office team.
What are some of those items in that checklist that have to be nailed?
So number one, you've got to get the invoices out and on time and with all of the attachments that are necessary. And I'll tell you, I've seen time and time again where, and it sounds so simple, you say, oh, you got to send the invoice, right? But the difference between, say, a grade C cash flow management and a grade A is the grade C will send out their invoice. And then they'll let it sit on the accounts receivable for 30, 60, 90 days. And then, behind the scenes, there'll be conversations inside of the business saying, well, hey, why hasn't so-and-so paid me yet? Whereas the grade A, they're not only sending the invoice, they're also doing follow-up and asking questions and saying, hey, have I provided everything that you need? Do you need an insurance certificate attached? Do you need any kind of a lien release attached? Many of these general contractors have put together systems where, they are not going to pay $1 until they have everything, that was itemized in that original contract completed. Also making sure that every job has a lien notice on top of it. I talk to a lot of construction leaders about macroeconomy and microeconomy, where, microeconomy is individual. It's my business. What can I do on a day-to-day basis to make, this month, this quarter, profitable? Whereas macroeconomy is the global economy, where you have all sorts of issues going on. There's, COVID-19 and certain businesses, like you were doing work for a gym franchise and all of a sudden the gym franchise shuts down. Yep. Now the work is stopped. And when I look at the micro, I always say, hey, focus on the microeconomy. And because when you do these things right, for example, sending out your invoices on time, sending out a lien notice, following up on those invoices, you just make sure that you're top of the.
A couple of things pop into mind here. Number one is, let's say I'm a sub and I'm working with a GC, and the GC has all of these requirements contractually in place before they pay. And, they're going to put those requirements in there probably to benefit them in terms of being able to float some money for a while, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So in terms of cash flow, as a subcontractor, what can I be doing ahead of time when I'm looking at the contract prior to signing it that may impact cash flow in the future?
That's a great question, because I think oftentimes, there's systems out there that the general contractor is using, this boilerplate language, long contracts. Yeah. And so, I think I always do this approach, which is, okay, make sure either the construction leader themselves or that back office person is reaching out to who is the accounts payable person at the general contractor in order to get some kind of email across where you say, hey, look, I realize in the contract you require this, and this, right? And because sometimes there'll be so many items, you'll just get confused. But if you talk to that accounts payable and just asking them, okay, I understand that we have all these commitments in the contract. Now, when it comes to, this initial draw, when it comes to the next draw, what are the items that you're really going to require? How can I make your job easier? Because I think there's a tendency when you send out that invoice and you don't get paid, within 30 days or 60 days, there's a tendency to get a little bit pessimistic. And I get it. Look, you should be pessimistic, but I think oftentimes I've had the reverse where I talk to the project managers at the general contractor where they say, look, I have the budget, I have the bank account to pay these contractors, but because we use such a rigid system, I cannot pay unless all of these boxes are checked. And it may even come down to something like certificate of insurance. So to answer your question, Eric, I would immediately reach out to that accounts payable person and send just a quick, one-liner that says, hey, I want to be able to make your life easier. What is it that you're going to require when I submit my billing at the end of the month? What is it that you're going to require to be able to go ahead and process that? And that often leads to more efficiency.
Just to summarize what we've been talking about so far, just the simple idea of sending out the invoices on time and completed And then it sounds like kind of the secret sauce is your accounts receivable folks, your people on the back end, diving into those relationships with the other parties and building those relationships so they have this idea of we're going to be the people who get paid first or get paid rapidly because we have those relationships established.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I'm a big believer in adoption of technology in the construction industry, but I think that, even with the technology adoption, that personal relationship does not go away because, in fact, what I see happening, with the more and more people adopt technology, there may be, you can just visualize it, right? Like there's some kind of magical pay button on the other side that general contractor is going to click, and then some check's going to be issued or some transfer of money. And the fact is that it could be something as silly as, oh, you didn't have a certificate of insurance, or, oh, you didn't send me a copy of your license. But that relationship of being able to work with that person is still, even in this day of technology, is still very important.
If you're working with a construction CEO and they're struggling, what are some key things that they can do immediately, especially to address that idea of the microeconomy that you've talked about? What are some additional things that they can do?
There's different aspects of the cash flow cycle. Did you cost out the project correctly? Are you going to earn a profit on this? Because this is, sometimes you want to grow, but if the profit margin is too low, people, I think, even when you say, oh, it's going to be this percent, well, it's only going to be, say, hey, it's going to be 10, 15%, or, oh, it's lower than I'm used to, but I want to keep my crew, it's seasonal and I want to keep my crew together. And I understand those things, but also, thinking through the fact that, in the whole payment cycle, that percentage that you expect to get, that's the best case, right? If you hit the mark 100%, no delay costs, the supply costs stay the same. The crew doesn't come to you for a raise mid-cycle anyway. So, I always indicate what is it you can do is I say, go through this checklist in terms of what are you doing at the front cycle? What are you doing at the billing cycle? And then what are you doing at the follow-up to make sure that your accounts receivable, your day sales outstanding are low? And are you also capturing and collecting everything that you can? And then another one, just to go back to your earlier question, is retainage. So it's like, hey, I think one thing you could do is be realistic in terms of, hey, if the retainage has been on your books for 2 years, you have no idea how many times I look at these books and I'm like, oh, what's your accounts receivable? And you're, oh, multi-million dollars of accounts receivable. And then you're like, oh, how much of that is within the last year? And it's like, oh, only 20%. And it's like, how do you have something on the books for 5 years ago? And okay, I understand that you want to keep it on your books for accounting reasons, but the reality of you collecting that 5 years is just, it's not going to happen.
So let me ask you about protecting your lien rights. What are some strategies that construction companies should be focused on consistently in order to do that?
The first thing is to realize there's a very limited time window. Now, depending on the state, that you can actually submit a notice, but making sure the start and end date and when you are working on a project is documented, because you have a very limited window of which to be able to send out that notice, oftentimes 20 days. And so just making sure that you're documenting all of your work in a system somewhere and that you're invoicing timely, because then if you're doing that, you can send out that notice at the same time that you're doing your invoicing. When you first start that project, that you open up a project in your accounting system. And then even if you're going to go out and do an inspection on the property, if you're going to go out and do that, all of that work is tied back to your system and tracked. There's many, many, many metrics, but the one metric that is sort of I would say a cheat code is your days sales outstanding. How many days from when I send an invoice to a customer does it take for that invoice to be paid? If you look at that day sales outstanding number, then oftentimes in the accounting system, I want to define it as something else. If you go into, say, a QuickBooks and you print out an aged invoices report, you're going to get a summary, and the summary is going to tell you, okay, I've got this many invoices, I've got this many invoices and this dollar amount that's outstanding for 30 days. I've got this many invoices that's outstanding for 60, for 90. And then you can see that it's sort of a business cheat code, because every faster that you're getting that dollar back, that's another dollar that you can invest into your business to grow.
So just to summarize here, if you're going to be able to have healthy cash flow, you need a lot of discipline, consistency, attention to detail all throughout the project cycle, as well as the folks on the back end doing the due diligence to build the relationships with people that they're looking to get the money from in order to maximize the possibility of getting paid as quickly as possible.
Yeah, you got it. You got it. I try to actually keep these principles simple. I always tell people, focus on the basics, because you're really setting the conditions for victory, right?
I think a lot of the reasons why people struggle with the cash flow in terms of those basics is they don't like the conflict, either real or perceived, that is inherent in picking up the phone and saying, pay me the money that you owe me.
We're in a competitive market. There's global economic conditions. There's all this stuff, but you can't control. All you can control is your microeconomy. And, oftentimes I'll hear a business owner say, well, I don't know if I want to send a lien notice because I want to build a really good relationship with this person. And I don't know if I want to make that phone call, or, oh yeah, I'll just write off 50% of my retainage because, I want to build a good relationship with this general contractor so that they feed me more business. And I understand that. But at the same time, I think you've got to also ask yourself, what type of relationship are you building with that other individual? And in fact, it's sort of a subservient relationship where you're building a relationship where, that person might send you more work, but they send it to you because they know that they can bring you in on a job where they screwed up, they underbid, then they know that they can jam your bills down.
Yeah, and it's interesting because this whole concept I often share with my clients is that you are the prize. In other words, it's a privilege to do business with you. And if you go onto a job site or into a project and you're just thankful to be there and hopeful that you'll get paid, then people will sense that and you won't engender the kind of respect that you need in order to build a healthy business on a long-term basis. So tell me a little bit, Patrick, about Handle.com. What is it that you guys do?
Grew up in a lumber business family that's out in Oakland, and it's got about 100-year tradition selling lumber. But I went into technology and engineering and software. And what I valued a lot about construction and construction businesses is they build stuff to last. Imagine you're building an iPhone. That thing is going to be worthwhile for a year, 2 years, 3 years. These buildings are worthwhile for hundreds of years. And so I found something very sentimental in that. But then I also saw certain things that, efficiencies that could be gained. And so I went through, and built Handle. And what Handle does is it's a tool that helps companies automate the back office tasks for protecting payment rights. And this is a tool that, people in your back office can use, or the construction business owner can use to ensure that they're protecting their payment rights on every job. But in addition to that, Handle focuses on how can we provide value to business owners related to cash flow and knowledge and items like that.
Give me the picture of the situation that you help contractors with the most, where they're saying to you, Patrick, I'm so glad you and I are working together because this is the problem you're solving for me.
So we work with very small to very large contractors. And ensuring that, the payment rights are protected on every job. And in the system, we have things like, we make sure that the, certified mail goes out on time. We have things like deadline tracking where we can connect Handle up to your accounting system, like a QuickBooks or a NetSuite or, whatever you may have, customer may have. And then off of those invoices, be able to send out the proper notices at the proper times. And then later, also have deadlines where if you're not getting paid, if you need to file something like a mechanics lien, the service will remind you and say, hey, look, you've got this amount of time to file the mechanics lien. And then also the lien releases. And so, a contractor, I'd say, our primary area is a contractor that's working on, multiple projects. They're busy building their business, and they want to make sure that that their accounts receivable is protected. Yeah.
Excellent. So go out to handle.com to check out more information about what they can do for you. It's interesting because what I'm seeing here at the end is that there's this human element and there's this technology element, and the technology is designed to support the human element in order to maximize the cash flow back to the business. So as we wrap up here, what are 3 immediate action items that a construction CEO or president can take in the next 30 days to improve their cash flow, just to summarize?
Sure. Number 1, go in and review, and run through this checklist. Make sure that, and because it's going to be different for everybody. It's going to be different for everybody. Number 2, look at your accounts receivable and get real. Number 2, make sure you have a back office person, right? Because I think if you don't, the more that you're doing that back office work where you're sending the invoices, where you're that is the less time that you're out there building your business. Do what you do best on. So that's number 2. But then number 3, sitting down and saying, hey, look, how can we improve? And sort of let's just go through. Let's do a quick review of our accounts receivable. Okay, let's look at this project and kind of doing what I would call a post-project review, where you sort of look at it and you sit down and you say, oh, when did we bid on that project? Were we over? Were we under? Were we sending out our invoices on time? You're never going to do everything perfect. And so a lot of times too, things could be out of your control. Making sure that the steps that you can do, that you're setting those conditions for victory. I still remember the story it was just a quick conversation I was having with the CEO where I said, hey, what about the back office? And they said, oh yeah, that's all the boring stuff. That's all the boring stuff. Like, okay, yeah, I'm on the same page as you. It could be boring. But that boring stuff is how you pay your people. That's how you pay yourself. That's how you build your business. And so, taking an interest in it, once you take an interest in it, those back office people are people just like you motivate your crew, right? When you're on the job, you motivate your crew. You can motivate the back office and you can say, hey, look, I think that your job is extremely important. How can we improve things here? I think you'll be blown away that oftentimes they might say, hey, I would make sure that we have our updated insurance, the insurance certificate, it expired, or I would make sure that we, maybe we implemented some follow-up, system, or I think you'll be surprised by those people often have very good ideas.
Just to summarize what you were saying there, number 1, you've got to take an interest, obviously, in the boring stuff. But, cash isn't boring. Yeah. Cash is pretty exciting when it's coming in. Number 2, I think this is key here. Make sure that you have a back office person who is trained, who is empowered, and that you listen to and get feedback from. And then lastly, number 3 is to do job reviews from beginning to end and pick out those parts of the job cycle that have caused your cash flow to be limited.
100%. You got it.
Excellent.
Yep.
Excellent. And of course, just to mention, you can get that checklist at handle.com/checklist. Patrick, I really appreciate you joining me here today. I do like to ask all of my guests at the end of the interview, what is your favorite place to eat? So that we can get a recommendation if anyone's in you're in the Bay Area most of the time, right?
I'm in the Bay Area. I'm in San Francisco. Lumber business is that grew up over in Oakland and now Concord. But so my favorite place to eat is a place called Brenda's. It's on Divisadero Street. It's called Brenda's Soul Food Kitchen, and it's it has very good, just amazing fried chicken and amazing. Just about anything. They've got a different menu, but I love eating it there. That's my favorite spot. Yeah.
Awesome. So we'll put a link in the show notes to Brenda's Soul Food Kitchen if you are in San Francisco. And Patrick, I do appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today. And thank you for sharing your insights here into how a business can improve their cash flow.
Sure. Thank you so much, Eric. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Construction Genius. Hope you found that 1% of inspiration to help you in the next few days. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes, share it with other construction leaders who you think would benefit, and always remember that the show is brought to you by Kick-Ass Meetings. I've been working with construction leaders since 2004, teaching them how to run extremely effective problem-solving meetings that gets their people collaborating, taps into their creativity. And to get yourself a free copy of the Kick-Ass Meeting Report, go to www.ericanderton.com/kickassmeetings. Grab yourself that free report, read it, use it in your business. You'll find it extremely useful. And thanks again for listening.